Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel carries out 50 new airstrikes against Hamas. The Israeli government sends its condolences to Turkey, and Israelis and Palestinians face off in Jerusalem, only this time they're having fun. I'm Natasha Kirchuk here with the latest news in Israel. Israeli jets have carried out around 50 new airstrikes against Hamas overnight, after a rocket from the Gaza Strip hit southern Israel. Now Hamas is parading rockets through Gaza in a show of anger, and the terror group is even threatening to maltreat Israeli hostages being held in the coastal enclave. A missile from northeastern Gaza landed between two homes in the Israeli city of Sderot yesterday afternoon, setting off Israel's wailing alarm system. Israel claims the rocket is the 14th to be launched from Gaza into Israel in 2016.
מבחינתנו זה היה בהפתעה, כי מזמן לא שמענו צבע אדום, אז הפתיע אותנו מאוד ונכנסנו לממ"ד. אחרי כמה שניות נשמע איזה בום עמום כזה, שחשבנו שאולי הבנו שזה נפילה, אבל חשבנו שזה רחוק מאיתנו. יצאנו החוצה, אנחנו רואים בבית של השכנים, עשן מתאמר לו, אז הבנו שזה ממש קרוב.
The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and two smaller terror groups linked to the Islamic State have claimed responsibility for the attack, but Israel says it holds Hamas responsible for any violence. Although nobody was hurt, the IDF responded with rocket fire of its own, targeting several Hamas positions in the Strip. One Palestinian has been lightly hurt and 3 others are experiencing shock as a result of the return fire. The stiff response marks the most intense Israeli reprisal attack on Gaza since Operation Protective Edge, the 50-day war between Israel and Hamas during the summer of 2014. Hamas is now parading rockets through the Gaza Strip and threatening with new fighting at a major rally. The terror group is even warning that it will mistreat Israeli hostages being held in the coastal enclave, offering them the same conditions as its own members are given in Israeli prisons. Hamas is still holding on to the remains of the Israeli soldiers Oron Shaul and Hadar Goldin, who were killed in the 2014 Gaza war. The group also claims to be holding the Israelis Avraham Mengitzu and Juma Ibrahim Abu Anima, both of whom entered the Strip in 2014 and have not been heard of since. Over 1,000 masked members of Hamas's military wing reportedly showed up to Sunday's rally, parading around various weapons. Since the end of the 2014 war, Hamas has repeatedly warned Israel that the terror group will restart fighting if the naval blockade on the Gaza Strip is not lifted. Israel is sending its condolences to Turkey over the tragic wedding bombing that killed 51 people on Saturday night. The bombing took place just hours after Turkey's parliament finally passed a reconciliation deal with Israel, paving the way for the restoration of full diplomatic ties after 6 years of broken relations. Saturday's explosion was the latest attack to rock Turkey, and the Turkish president is blaming the blast on the Islamic State group.
Gaziantep'te Şahin Bey'de bir düğün merasimi esnasında 12-14 yaşlarında bir canlı bombanın patlaması veya patlatılması neticesinde önce 94 yaralı, şu an itibariyle bu yaralıların tedavi edilenlerini bir kenara koyacak olursak çıktılar. Hastanelerde yaralı olarak şu anda 69 yaralı var. Bunların 17'si ağır. Tabii 51 ölüm vakası söz konusu.
A suicide bomber as young as 12 years old reportedly carried out the attack at the Kurdish wedding celebration, which took place near Turkey's border with Syria. The remains of his suicide vest were found at the scene.
Valiliğimiz, emniyet teşkilatımız vardıkları ilk kanaatler bir DAEŞ eylemi olduğu istikametinde. Malum son dönemlerde Gaziantep'te DAEŞ'in böyle bir yapılanması veya yer bulma gayretleri söz konusuydu. Birçok yoğun operasyonlar yapılıyor.
The Islamic State has been blamed for other similar attacks in Turkey, often targeting Kurdish gatherings in an effort to inflame ethnic tensions. The pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party says a wedding party was for one of its members, although both the bride and groom survived the deadly attack. Israel is now sending its best wishes to all those injured in the attack and is vowing to join forces with the international community to defeat terrorism. Several wannabe Likud leaders are attempting to test the waters to eventually replace current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But Jerusalem Post political reporter Gil Hoffman is telling ILTV's Steve Leibowitz that there's no real challenger on the horizon.
Gil Hoffman, it's summertime, and it seems like this is the time to challenge the powers that be. The Likud is having a conference today. Is this the beginning of a leadership challenge to Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Absolutely not, Steve. This is the quietest time of the year. It's August. The Knesset that is right there in front of me is not in session now until after the Jewish holidays end at the end of October. Meanwhile, the members of Knesset are on vacation, but beneath the surface, there are a lot of people who want to be Prime Minister and are getting increasingly frustrated that they are not.
Even inside Likud, who are the major challenges to the Prime Minister, and are they ready for prime time?
Inside the Likud, no one would dare challenge Netanyahu. They know that they can't beat him, so I burn themselves by running and losing. What ends up happening is that when they get too popular, they leave. Moshe Ya'alon is out there very frustrated. He today is speaking to a Hadassah group. He's formed a new nonprofit organization called the Movement for Alternative Leadership that we published exclusively in the Jerusalem Post here Tuesday. He is working to build himself up as an alternative, as is Gideon Sa'ar, Netanyahu's former number two. Moshe Kachlon and Avigdor Lieberman and Naftali Bennett, who all at one point were under Netanyahu, are all in different parties today that they lead, and can all, at any given point when Netanyahu's political career is done, come back and try to become the next Prime Minister of Israel.
Those that are inside Likud, like Gilad Erdan and Minister Katz, they are the ones who would like to see the Prime Minister's terms limited so that it gives someone else a chance to run Likud?
So exactly, today is a meeting of the Likud Secretariat, which is chaired by Israel Katz, who's our Minister of Intelligence Services and Transportation. They're trying to take away power from the leader of the party and give it to the activists, led by Katz. Whatever they can do to chisel away at Netanyahu's almost endless power, they're going to try to do in order to try to build themselves up for the future. Well, one particular proposal out there would have de facto term limits for the leader of the Likud. Say you have to get 60% of the vote in order to win again when you're running for at least a third term. That's the kind of thing that could finish Netanyahu off with a technical move.
Well, let's look briefly at the Labour Party. Bougie Isaac Herzog has withstood a challenge that would have had primaries very soon, and he's pushed it off for another year.
Nothing better than pushing off your destiny of losing a re-election for a leader of the Labour Party. Herzog has pushed it off twice now. Now we're looking at an election in July 2017, and that leaves almost a year to delay that race again. And that keeps on the sidelines the people who might consider running for leader of the Labour Party and using it as a platform to contest the country's leadership. A couple former chiefs of staff of the Israeli army, Benny Gantz, Gabi Ashkenazi, could decide to form their own party or run in some other party, but Labour is it's a party without a leader for a leader without a party.
Well, there are people like Shelley Yachimowicz and Margalit that have announced or seemingly are going to be in a leadership struggle. Neither of them has the ability to take over Labour?
They have the ability to take over Labour, but they don't have the ability to take over the country, Steve. And I think that's what the members of the Labour Party will decide the next leader of Labour want. They are aware that the only person who can beat Netanyahu is a former general, and that there are on the sidelines 4 former generals. There's Ashkenazi and Gantz, who could run for leader of the Labour Party. There's Ya'alon, who does not belong there. He's too right-wing. And there is Ehud Barak, who no one wants.
Gil Hoffman, thanks so much for being with us at ILTV.
Thank you.
It seems like nowadays everybody wants to get in on helping solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, whether or not Israel is asking for help. So far this year, we've seen a French initiative and even a visit to Israel by a former Saudi general backing the Arab proposal. And now it's been revealed that a high-ranking delegation of senior Israeli officials went to Cairo for meetings on the issue yesterday with their Egyptian counterparts. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has long made it clear that he'd like to take a leading role in reviving the peace process by convening a summit between the two sides, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu already signaled his willingness to meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in such a context. Just last week, Abbas reportedly informed Egypt he's dropped his objections to the offer. But now Egypt is introducing yet another actor into the mix with a surprise announcement from Sisi that Russian President Vladimir Putin is also willing to host Israeli and Palestinian leaders for direct talks. The Egyptian leader says that in an update from Putin, he was informed that the Kremlin has already invited both Netanyahu and Abbas to hold face-to-face meetings in Moscow. These latest developments come as the Russian leader takes on ever-increasing involvement in the Middle East, such as military engagement in Syria's civil war. US-led efforts to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian crisis broke down in 2014. The BDS movement seems to be getting stronger around the world, so how is Israel combating it? A new book has just been published called BDS Unmasked that gives world leaders the tools needed to push back against the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz sat down with the book's author, Dan Diker, to hear all about it.
You just made a trip to South Africa to meet the people there and that are involved in the anti-BDS movement. What were your findings there?
There are some very unusual findings in South Africa, as there are, by the way, among some on the Palestinian side in the disputed West Bank, Judea and Samaria. In South Africa, we found that there are more and more leaders, black leaders from political parties across the spectrum, from the ANC, the African National Council, which is the ruling party, that oppose BDS. They understand that this apartheid libel, that Israel is an apartheid state, is a complete slander against the state of Israel. And in fact, it slanders their own apartheid experience. And we're beginning to see some serious pushback in South Africa, which is the epicenter of the Israel apartheid libel. So our sense was, and this is going to be the next book after BDS Unmasked, it's called BDS Reconsidered, South Africans Critique the Israel Apartheid Libel, because we found that if we go to the epicenter of what the Israel Apartheid Libel has always been, and they're rejecting it, the echo effect around the world will be great.
I suppose that in South Africa, there's the BDS movement is able to use the word apartheid, or tries to use it to their advantage. In other countries in the world, it doesn't have the same effect. Is that right?
Well, they do. The South African public and political class and intellectual class and media, they live in the dark shadows of apartheid, and everything that they're struggling with today as a new emerging democratic republic with a severe identity challenge, with all of the minority groups involved, from the Xhosa to the Jews to the Zulus and others, is really framed by their horrible memory of apartheid. And that is why more and more of them, especially the rank and file Christian public who love Israel, they say, we pray to the God of Israel. We pray to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And when Israelis come to South Africa and they talk about their own holy tradition of Judaism, the public doesn't want to do anything else but support the Jewish state. I found that personally during my time there, and that is why it is so important to ally with more and more voices in the political class, across the parliamentary spectrum, as well as in the religious public and the religious leadership that will support the Jewish state and the state of Israel.
Dan Diker, thanks so much for being with us at ILTV.
Thank you.
Well, the 2016 Olympics are finally over, but if you think Israel didn't take home as many medals as it should have, you're wrong. The Israeli delegation actually won even more than just 2 bronze medals by scoring a better-than-average performance in Rio. The 17-day competition culminated with a festive closing ceremony in the tropical city last night, as Brazil concluded the first Olympics ever to be hosted in South America. And even though Israeli Olympians failed to bring home the gold, the competition still marked an impressive showing and noticeable improvement over previous years. The 47-member delegation was the largest ever sent by Israel. The greatest high points were, of course, the nation's 2 bronze medals in judo, for Yarden Gerbi in the women's half middleweight and Oli Sasson in the men's heavyweight. The biggest disappointments were in sailing, since the country took top honors in the 2004 Games, as well as in rhythmic gymnastics with a 6th-place finish. The squad's coach Ira Vigdolchik made headlines by saying that the Israeli team had more to contend with than just putting on a winning performance, and blamed politics, poor representation in the sport's governing body, and substandard training conditions that stack the odds against winning a medal. Nevertheless, the final tally marks a 28% jump in Israel's Olympic awards, from 7 medals since Israel began competing in the Olympics in 1952 to 9. The delegation participated in 17 sporting competitions compared with just 10 at the 2012 London Games, and included the 3 new categories of golf, triathlon, and mountain biking. The team also succeeded in reaching the finals in 7 sports, and it's also a major source of pride that more than half of the contending Israelis were women. So now that the hoopla in Rio is over, you'd think it would be time to take a break. But nope. Preparations are already beginning to improve Israel's chances of success even more at the Tokyo Games in 2020. Nowadays, we're constantly bombarded with information from the internet, from Facebook to Google to Twitter. There's so much data coming at you, it can be hard to make sense of it all. Well, now one Israeli company has found a way to analyze the data around us in a way that we can finally comprehend. Joining us today in the studio is Amir Orad, the CEO of SciSense. Thanks so much for coming in.
Hi there.
So, to begin, can you explain to us what is big data?
Sure. Big data is really lots of data. And the truth is, in the last 2 years alone, the world produced 90% of all the information ever produced. Lots of information is produced from the internet, mobile phones, sensors, online traffic, etc. And we're bombarded this with data.
Wow, okay, so what does your company do with this big data?
So what we do is help businesses make sense from all of this information. And an SMB today, a small business, has tons of information. Internet data, transaction data, public publicity that we have, marketing, advertising, HR information, financial information, inventory, lots and lots of information. And there's more of it all the time. And we help businesses make sense in a simple way out of complex data.
So can you put that in easier terms for us? Give us an example, a concrete example of how that would work. Let's say, I don't know, a clothing store that's looking for more information.
Real example, we have some large retailers using us like Target and others. So a clothing store would...
I literally was thinking of Target, so this works out perfectly.
Perfectly. So they, for example, would have lots and lots of potential information to use. They know who you are when you come into the store, when you pay. They have your information. They know what inventory you're buying. They know when you do that. They know which people, how many are coming into the stores. They have sensors today in every store. And they're trying to make sense out of it. What to order, correlate some activities and behaviors to the weather, to what's happening in the news, et cetera, et cetera. And they are unable to do it in a simple way today because of all of this information around them. Right. We make it very simple. So a business user, head of retail, a marketing person, a salesperson, can make sense out of all of this information.
Now, but what about privacy and issues of privacy in terms of, maybe I may be searching for something on my phone, but I don't necessarily want these big companies to know that I'm searching for that given product.
So data privacy is a big thing these days.
Right.
We're dealing with information already available to businesses. So eBay, as a client, for example, has lots of information about you because you log into the website, you do surf within the eBay website and you let them see what you're doing, you buy stuff, you sell stuff. They look into all of that to try and make sense to predict what's your next behavior. Think about the stock market. We buy stock, we sell stock, we look at different options. All of that information is mined today to make sense, to give us a better service, to be more efficient, to know which merchandise to offer and promote, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really all around us.
How did you come up with the idea for this company?
So it really began as 5 Israeli students out of Tel Aviv, out of college, having this insight. Can we analyze and mine lots of information in a very, very, very simple way? Until then, until SciSense came about, when you have complex data sets, you need to have an army of IT professionals, people, database experts, IT professionals, big machines to crunch all the information, which makes it not accessible, not doable, not cost-effective for mere mortals and for day-to-day businesses.
Right.
And those 5 guys found a way to crunch all of this information on a standard PC, like the one you have at home, on a slightly bigger one, and give you value out of it without spending months and months of IT hell to go through.
So who are the customers? Is this big businesses, or can it be somebody like myself?
So it's really for businesses large and small.
Okay.
We have the largest you can imagine, NASDAQ, GE, Lockheed Martin, NASA, Target, all the way up,
Wow.
all the way down to small businesses with 10, 20 employees, startups in California, in Israel. What's amazing is a small business today, you know, a hotel, right, can have more information today than the NSA had 30 years ago. It's mind-blowing. They actually say that in 2 days, we produce more information than all of humanity ever produced up until a few years ago. In 2 days. So there's so much out there that people with tools and that are using those tools can be so more efficient, so more effective, give better service, better value, you know, provide more profits to our shareholders, that it's almost a sin, a crime, not to take advantage of this information.
Absolutely. Now, it kind of reminds me of a company like SalesPredict, Kira Radinsky's idea to basically use this data to predict,
Correct.
you know, future events, and obviously in terms of sales, how businesses can do with
Correct.
selling certain
Many
products.
businesses around this area. Our focus is one, to give business users, not data scientists, business users, very simple ways to get lots of insights quickly. That's what we do. We have today 1,000 clients worldwide, 54 countries, all of technology developed in Tel Aviv, and it's going pretty well.
What is the key to your success? How have you garnered all these big clients?
So it's really a combination of a very strong product. End of the day, if the product sucks, people will not use it. It sounds obvious, but it's not that obvious.
Very
right?
basic.
You need a great product. But then you need to be able to show value quickly. Because businesses today are flooded with offers for different products. So our product is designed from day one to give you immediate value in a simple way from complex data. If it does what we claim it does, we can demonstrate value quickly. We sell to all of these companies on the phone. On the phone. All of these businesses were done over the phone. In 90 minutes, in an hour and a half, we can show value. Go right now to sisense.com. You can click a button, and in 90 minutes, we'll show you a working system on your information, live, big information, and give you insights. And when it works, there's a wow moment, and then people start buying it.
So what is the future? I mean, where are you hoping that this technology is headed?
We really believe that there is a space here that is going to grow because data is only growing up. No one ever told me I have less data today than yesterday. It's only going up. And it's becoming more complex. We have more data sources. You mentioned Facebook, Twitter, Salesforce, inventory, finance, right? All around us. So more data sources, and business users need to be more competitive, not less competitive. So the direction of the market is very clear. People need more of that. And our goal is to build a market leader, focus on one thing, simplifying complex data for business users.
Well, you need somebody to kind of analyze every bit of important data that exists in this kind of mess of information around us. And it seems like you guys are on the right track to doing that. So congratulations, and I'm hoping to hear about what happens next.
Thank you.
At least 150 Israelis and Palestinians just confronted one another in Jerusalem, but no, it's not what you think. There was no violence involved, just good sportsmanship and ongoing efforts for the residents of the capital to coexist in peace. A backgammon competition was coordinated by Jewish and Arab social activists in the Palestinian Beit Hanina neighborhood, which is often associated with being a powder keg of tension. But this event turned out to be an enjoyable interaction between the two sectors. One of the Arab organizers from the adjoining Shuafat refugee camp said the goal was very simple, to just have participants sit face to face and play one another. One of the Jewish leaders who's ultra-Orthodox said that even though the group isn't trying to initiate some kind of a political solution, that after people are able to actually recognize a person across from them as human beings, it will be easier to reach understandings. The project kicked off about 5 years ago, when Jews and Palestinians were brought together to sing Arabic and Hebrew songs. Even though the security situation in Jerusalem wasn't great, the events have been. This led to additional efforts to bring the two sides together, including a 2014 street party on the seam between the Israeli west and Arab eastern sides of the city. The activities were then expanded to include backgammon tournaments, and the next event will be held in about 10 days' time. Because the newest event is being held in the Talbieh neighborhood where President Reuven Rivlin lives, it's very much hoped that he'll be stopping by to join in the fun and interactive experience. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. If you like playing games, it may be time to learn sheshbesh, which means backgammon in Hebrew. Sheshbesh is one of the oldest board games known in history. That's probably why it's so popular in Israel, which has one of the richest ancient histories in the world. Backgammon can be traced back to the Roman and Byzantine era over 5,000 years ago, and today the game is as popular as ever all over the Middle East, especially in Turkey and Israel. In fact, the word sheshbesh is made up of both a Hebrew and a Turkish word. Shesh means 6 in Hebrew and besh means 5 in Turkish. Those two numbers represent the best possible rolls of the dice you could hope for when you begin a game, because they give you an edge over your opponent. So if you find yourself playing the game in the Israeli shuk or at the beach, remember to yell sheshbesh if you land the magical roll. Israelis will not only be impressed with your skills, but also with your ability to call it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tomorrow is expected to be sunny with a high of 86 degrees. The sun should stay out through Wednesday with the temperature going up to 87. Alright everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.78 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to check out our next update at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and see you tonight.